Hello, everyone. I'm Dresden Graff, owner of Instinct Fort Worth down here in Texas, and this is Seesaw Strategies for the Sensitive Soul. Welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for choosing to join us tonight. I'm going to get into a couple of the guiding principles that I use whenever I'm working with sensitive souls, and then we'll hop into the Seesaw specific stuff. All right? So, take the extra minute or two and confirm that your dog does, in fact, have the prerequisite skills. Don't try to skip the foundation pieces. You're just going to make more work for yourself, and you're going to have to come back and do them later. So give it a try. If your dog already knows it, awesome. You've got some more confidence and fluency in that behavior. If your dog doesn't, also awesome. Now you know where to start. Marker cues are your friend. I love marker cues. They add so much clarity, and clarity helps create confidence, which is exactly what we're looking for when dealing with sensitive dogs. Shade is doing her Crucial Concepts class this semester, I believe, and that is where I got started with marker cues, and I will never go back. They are absolutely incredible and have been a game changer for the way I teach my dogs. The ones that I specifically use for the Seesaw are good, which means the food is coming to you. Yes, which means come to my hand to get the cookie. And get it, which is I've tossed one for you to chase. The next 2 points go hand in hand. Let your dog tell you where they are and listen to what your dog is telling you. Whenever I'm working on the Seesaw, I'm going to do it off leash. I'm going to let my dog set the distance as far as how comfortable they are being close to the motion, being close to the noise. If my dog doesn't willingly choose to hang out by me, by the Seesaw, then we're definitely not ready to go on it. And that's okay. That just is our starting point, and that's what we got to do. And then listen to what your dog is telling you. It's not helpful to be like, you did this yesterday, or what's wrong with you? Or, if you just do it once, you'll realize it's not trying to kill you. That kind of stuff is not particularly helpful to your state when you're training, or to your dog. So just kind of try to train yourself to take a deep breath, take a step back, evaluate where you are, and see if this is a training session you want to pursue, or if you just want to play with your dog, shelf the training, and come back to it either later in the day or another day. You'll hear this from me a lot, and I'm sure you've heard it from your instructors a lot. Short and sweet sessions are the way to go. For my dogs, I use cheese stick rules. So my lab might have a full cheese stick cut up, ready to go for our Seesaw session, and my Papillons might have like a quarter of a cheese stick cut up and ready to go. I use cheese when I'm training the Seesaw because for my dogs, that's something relatively exciting, but not too exciting. So I want to keep their rewards so they can stay in the thinking realm. So that kind of cuts out like hot dogs and liverwurst for my dogs personally, because they will like blindly follow those things. And I want them paying attention. I want them feeling the board and how it's moving, and that they are making it move. Every day is a new day. That can be a great thing or a frustrating thing. That just means that when you go out to your training field, of course, have a game plan for what you want to do, but be ready to be very flexible. It's not always a clean this step, then this step, then this step, especially when you're working with a sensitive dog. You all know that. And that's just how behavior works, is sometimes we get better and better and better, and then it all falls apart one day. And that's okay. Whenever you're working with things that are more fear-based, that kind of stuff can pop up, and that's okay. It just means that, again, you need to be patient, meet your dog where they're at, listen to what they're telling you. They are not out to get you. Your dog is not lying to you. They are not trying to, get more treats out of you or whatever. They want to work with you. Meet them where they're at. And then, of course, you've heard this one a million times as well. Quit while you're ahead. If you think, just one more rep, don't do it. Go play with your dog instead. Just cut off the training session, go play with your dog, do cookie chases for the rest of the things, do tugging, do chase games, do personal play, do whatever, but stop the training session. If y'all listen to the podcast, you already heard a little bit about this, but depending on the size of your dog and how worried your dog is, you are going to notice more or less pieces of the seesaw. But we are going to talk about how to touch base on all of these. So you have the approach, you have the up ramp, you have the tilt or that pivot point, you have the initial hit, then you have the bounce or like the kickback, and then you're going to have the exit and the board reset, which is often forgotten in training and at trials. So, tips for some common woes, which Poison politely demonstrated there in the photos for us. Bailing and stalling out one of two ways. In the middle picture, I have Poison laying down beautifully, probably about 6 inches before it's actually going to move. And in the bottom picture, I have Poison doing that probably familiar glance off to the left, glance off to the right, evaluating how worried I am, how far the ground is it better to go through this or bail? And again, all these are very normal things that happen. I see it a lot. So let's talk about some of them. Whenever I go into a training session for the seesaw, I make sure my dog knows that it's going to move. So I go over there. If my dog is a real go-getter and a little bit punchy to get out on the field, I'm going to make sure that I preset my board so they cannot move it. Then I'll come out, remove the props that had it stuck up in place, and I will push down the board so it hits the ground and bounces back, making it very, very clear to my dog that this item that we are working on is going to move. Another thing that I see a lot, both in classes and at trials, is people will try to use the same verbal for the dog walk as they do for the seesaw. And I highly, highly recommend that you pick something very salient, so something very different for the seesaw specifically. I use Bang or Bang Bang for my Papillons, but you really want to make sure that your dog knows that, again, this is not a board that I am just going to extend on. This is a board where I need to collect myself a little bit and prepare for it to move, so I don't go flying into the abyss, or so the ground doesn't fall out from underneath me. Stick with your dog in the training stages. So the middle photo and the bottom photo specifically, you can see that I am ahead or so far ahead that you can't even see me in the picture. That is when you get into trouble with sensitive dogs. If you find yourself drifting ahead, just kind of ease back, kind of at their shoulder is a good place to be. I found that to be very productive as far as them feeling supported and them feeling like I am helping them through this instead of leaving them behind in the dust to sort out the tilt on their own. When it comes to rewards, try very hard not to tease your dog. By that, I mean, if I place out my hand and tell my dog, this treat is for you, and then they start to move forward and I move my hand again, my dog is going to go very quickly, when I move forward, the food gets further away. I'm already not particularly comfortable, and now the food is even farther away, so super not worth it. That's where you'll get bailing, or you have to go back and feed your dog where they're at, or have them turn around, whatever. But don't get in the habit of teasing them. You can tell if your dog thinks they're being teased by if you lower your hand and your dog starts to follow and you move your hand, your dog's weight shifts back. That tells me I have been teasing my dog too much, perhaps unintentionally, perhaps intentionally. Doesn't really matter. The result is the same. I have a dog that now doesn't believe that the food is going to stay where I have presented it. And I want my dog to feel very comfortable knowing that they can take food from my hand. I don't need to put it on the board for them to know that it's going to stay put. I want them to know that when I place out my hand and tell them it's for you, it is for you and my hand just lives there. I do use different cues, so I have like a finger point follow if I want my dog to move up, and that's something that I've trained, and my dogs know. Follow the finger, and then I will eventually mark and present a treat. And I have luring, which is kind of like, you know, that food right in front of my dog's nose, and I lure them along. But both of those are different than the presentation and then movement of food after my dog starts to move. For bailing, that top photo, if you can tell your dog is, maybe they're giving you that bottom photo look of, I'm thinking about bailing, do not grab their collar. Just don't do it. Again, part of listening to your dog is letting them have freedom of motion here. I want my dog to feel okay bailing if they don't feel safe. It's all right. It's fine. The board is, 10 inches off the ground at this point. Nothing terrible is going to happen. I am still going to reward my dog, and then we're going to try again. Now, if it starts to become a game, so I'm repeatedly getting a happy-looking dog rushing up and bailing off, then I know I need to address something else. But if it is worry-based, then I'm not going to worry about it. It happened, reward anyway, and let's go back and try this again together. And then, like I kind of hinted on the last slide, remember the reset bounce. Don't get so sucked up in the euphoria of your dog doing the seesaw finally that your dog is standing right there as the board starts to pop back up and hit the ground. That's where I see a lot of dogs get spooked or get hit. So make sure that after your dog does your end criteria, that you book it out of there, either do a cookie toss or race off with your dog. So that just becomes part of your habit, part of their habit, and so they aren't getting smacked with the seesaw or, again, scared by the bounce. I will, with that reset bounce, I will plan to exit a variety of ways. I believe we'll talk about that more later, but I don't want it to be we always exit straight every single time. I'll add some soft angles to it too. It is a contact obstacle. There shouldn't be anything too crazy as far as the angles go, at least in AKC, but stuff happens. So just make sure your dog is comfortable exiting the seesaw safely and you are adding distance away from that reset noise. Whenever we work on the seesaw, I really want you to take a step back and think about the big picture. And is what I'm doing helpful? Common trainer strategies that I have seen are things like, okay, my dog is not quite at the pivot point. They're just hanging out. So if I, the human, push the board down, then my dog will have to come forward because now the board's tipping. And they feel that that's a way to help their dog through it. Or I'll see people thinking that they want their dog to go further and drive to the end of the board. So they'll hold the board up longer until their dog is at the point that they want them to be. Now, that can be a great game later, maybe. But when you are teaching it, and when you are teaching it to a sensitive dog, I really, really want them to know where that tipping point is, and I want them to feel it out, and I want them to find it. Part of that is I'm ready to catch the plank, but again, I'm letting them start it. I'm ready to catch the plank because what I'll see a lot of sensitive dogs do is they hit that tipping point, the board starts to move, and they shift their weight back, so the board will tip back into its original place. I don't want that to happen. That is very scary for the dogs. So as soon as that tipping starts, if I know my dog is not far enough ahead for it to keep going down, then I will just grab the board and I might lower it the rest of the way down to help them through that, and then make sure next time that I support them slightly differently. So that might be, all right, I'm going to tell them yes, and I'm going to present the treat 2 inches ahead of where they were last time. Yes means come to my hand and get the cookie. I'm not going to move it. So they'll come to my hand, and then the board is going to fall by itself. And if you are using props, please, please, please remember to fade them. Because dogs are very good at categorizing safe and unsafe. So if they learn that the cushion on the ground, because you're absorbing some sound, means the board is safe, quieter, then suddenly they go to a trial and that cushion is not there. They go, ah. And they, maybe they charge up the plank, maybe they don't, but either way, it makes an awful noise when it hits the ground. And they go, this one is not safe. I have used, cushions or mats to absorb some of the sound, and I've used like a specifically designed seesaw catch as a prop before as well. When I go to fade props, I move them in towards the base so that picture is still there, and until my dog is doing the full thing with the full noise by itself, then I'll take the prop completely out of the picture. Because again, I don't want them to think removal of it means it's unsafe. I want them to experience that sound with the prop still in their field of vision before I fade it completely. Same goes for the instructors or friends that are helping train the seesaw with you. Make sure that if you are down catching the plank, so you are absorbing some of the speed that the plank is going down, or you are absorbing some of the sound that the plank would give, that you make sure you fade that human out as well. So I do the same kind of thing like I was talking about with physical, non-human props, where I will just stop catching it, but I'm still there. And then can I move away a little bit? Can I move away a little bit more? Can I stand up? Can I go away? So again, slow progression to no props, because I don't want my dog to think, okay, when my instructor is there, it is safe, and when they are not there, it is scary. Before I add height, I always make sure I do all pieces. So I want to practice safe approaches, safe exits, then handler distance, speed, and I want to have my clear end criteria. All of these boxes need to be checked before I move on to adding more height. I don't want to rush the process. My goal is to train the seesaw once and then be done. So I just want to, address all of these things before I even start adding height. For practicing safe approaches, I love using go around a cone. I will set that up depending on the dog. Will dictate how far away I set it up. For the Papillons, I can get away with, 8 feet. For my large dogs, it's going to be 12 or 15 feet away. I'll send them out around and just kind of move that cone slightly. So we can do some soft angles from the left, some soft angles from the right, and of course our straight ahead ones. Oh, sorry. Always making sure that your dog has enough space to enter it safely and appropriately. I don't want to set up the cone so close that my dog can't see the whole picture of the board that they are approaching, and I don't want to set it so close that my dog is accidentally shoved into an unsafe approach. Same goes for my exits. I think we touched on this a little bit earlier, but I want to, from the get-go, kind of always be switching up my exits so my dog doesn't get locked into a pattern that way. Once I get my end behavior, we will either book it forward or to the left or to the right. We practice our soft angles. With the exits, sometimes I'll practice all the way up to 90 degrees on the left and on the right, varying how far away we go from the seesaw. So again, my dog can work on that, building some value and some resilience to that reset motion and bounce, which we should have already practiced earlier before we get to this point. But again, making sure we don't get locked into this is how we always do the seesaw. So I'm not accidentally setting my dog up to think I'm breaking the rules. And then other things like handler distance, you don't need to go crazy with this one. You can keep it pretty tight. But can I do the seesaw without being plastered to the side of it? So does my dog feel safe and confident enough that I can be 2 feet away, 4 feet away, 6 feet away? Depending on the size of the dog, you might want more. For my lab, I want to be able to be much further away than I need to be for my Papillons. Though I train for extra distance, I need to make sure before I move that height up that I can at least get away from being right up against the plank, right with my dog every step of the way. Same goes for handler speed. There are speeds between walking and sprinting, so practice those. Can you go slightly faster? Emphasis on slightly. Can you go slightly slower? And then start to play around a little bit more with that kind of stuff. And the final piece is making sure that you have really clear end criteria. This is something that I could do a whole separate webinar on, but I strongly feel that all of my dogs should have a complete 4-on behavior for the end of the seesaw so they don't get gut punched, or so that if they were to move forward just a little bit and their rear feet were to come off, that it's not going to smack them in the butt. So I feel very strongly about making sure my dogs fully understand that you go and you wait with all 4 feet on this item, and then we continue.